Hello again, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Reiner, and thank you for listening in to a brand new episode of Deeply Rooted.
Deeply rooted in God's Word. Deeply rooted in God's Word.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of Deeply Rooted. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited about the content today, and of all days, this is our 50th episode, so we are extremely blessed. We're very grateful for all the things that have happened here. Feels like yesterday it was episode 1, but here we are at 50. Can't say enough about all the people, wherever you're at and however you may be listening. We appreciate our audience. We appreciate the support. I got to make a big shout out to our good friend, Cody Mabe. Cody is our right-hand man here at Deeply Rooted. When I say we, a lot of times on the podcast, that's who I'm referring to. And he is our everything. He's the Renaissance man, basically, of Deeply Rooted. He's our music, IT guy, you name it. He's doing everything that I can't, which is a whole lot. So we appreciate him, and we want to give him a big shout out before we get into our episode today. As always, don't forget, if you haven't done so before, check out our YouTube channel. Go on over there and subscribe to that. Leave us a comment or review. We'd really appreciate it. And then if you'd like to, hop on over to Apple Podcast. You can also subscribe on there as well. Make sure you leave us a review. That helps us out a lot, getting the content out there. New faces, new ears, so they can listen to it, and we'd really appreciate that. Now, if you're really hungry for more, you can go on over and follow us on our Facebook page. We've got daily inspirational stuff on there if you want to be a part of that. You can also keep up with any time we put out a new episode. And if you really want to be a part of Deeply Rooted, you can keep on going over to our website. That's jeremiahreiner.com. Again, that's jeremiahreiner.com. You'll see all the archive messages. They're all on there, all the previous episodes. You have no problem linking those up. That'll take you directly to our YouTube channel. And you can also see all of our blog posts that we've got on there. We've got quite a bit, so if you're looking for some content to read while you're inside right now, or maybe just getting out and about a little bit more, it's a great time to jump in on those. And if you'd like to be in the areas where we're at, all the ministry schedules on there. So if you want to be a part of where I'm at on the weekends, sometimes we travel around a lot. We're very blessed to be able to do that. So if you want to dive in and be a part of one of the services, we'd love to see you. We'd love to fellowship. We'd love to really just share in this kingdom adventure that we're on right now with the Lord. So if you want to check out all of our scheduling events and upcoming ministry opportunities, they're on there as well. So without further ado, we want to go ahead and dive into the episode today. Like I said, this is episode 50, so we have scoured the globe to find a huge guest for us today, and I'm really excited that I got a chance to get in contact with this young man. I think you're really going to enjoy this. So if you got some time, and I hope you do, sit down, and I think you'll appreciate the content we have for you today. But here at Deeply Rooted, we are so glad to have Dylan Novak. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
All right, thank you. Dylan right now is currently the youth and teen pastor for Henry's Chapel Missionary Baptist Church here in Rogersville, Tennessee. So we appreciate them opening their doors for us to have our interview here today. Along with his new bride, Morgan, Dylan's also known as the Celebrity Evangelist, and that's really what we're kind of here to talk about today. Dylan and his wife, they've dedicated their life to really, as he would say, pointing the stars to the sun. So Dylan, thanks for being on the program, buddy.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm beyond honored.
I appreciate it, man. What are people's reactions when they hear the term celebrity evangelist?
It's an interesting response rate. Some are confused. Some believe that I'm calling myself a celebrity, which is not the case. Some people think that it's a title a preacher gave me because I was a famous evangelist, also far from true. But then some people get it for what it really is. It's just a ministry title name, Celebrity Evangelist. I'm evangelizing to celebrities.
Let's tie some loose ends here together really quick and catch everybody up to speed. Would you care to explain a little bit about your background and your conversion story and kind of how you came to where you're at right now?
Well, I was saved when I was 8 years old. However, I didn't fully give my life over to Christ until I was 20 years old. I grew up in church, and ever since I was a kid, I loved ministry. I had a dream of being a missionary, being a preacher of some sorts. I used to have my mom line up all of my soft friends' plush toys in my room. My papa built me a podium and I would preach to my soft friends. And it was funny. I used to have my mom make them fight so I could send one to the other room like my old youth pastor used to have to do. So there was always that underlying in my life. However, throughout my teenage years, my focus changed. I wanted to become a contemporary Christian music drummer. And that was not what God had in mind for me. However, I didn't want to hear that. So for years, I would fight that. And it wasn't until I was 20 years old that when I fully surrendered my life to Christ that I gave up that dream, and I couldn't be happier that I did.
Do you still play music?
I do. I just moved here to Rogersville. I don't have my drum set up yet. I haven't gotten too much time to play it in the last couple of years, sadly. But I still love to play.
Now, talk about something that happened. I read this on your bio. At the age of 13, you went and saw an interview with Margot Kidder. And for people that are unfamiliar with this, I thought this was really neat. My brother and I were big superhero fans growing up and still are. So when I saw that name, you may be familiar. Late 70s, early 80s, there was a Superman series. Christopher Reeve played there, but Margot Kidder played Lois Lane. And so you talk a little bit about that interview that we watched with her. What did that lead you into?
Well, during those teenage years, and honestly, throughout my life period, still to this day, superhero pop culture nerd. And there was a comic book convention coming to Knoxville. Begged my parents to take me. Finally broke them down. They let me go. And I was so excited to meet so many celebrity guests that were going to be there. Lou Ferrigno, who played the Hulk. Ray Park, who was Darth Maul in Star Wars.
Sure.
And then Margot Kidder. So I started watching all the different movies and TV shows of these celebrities, and then ran out of those and started watching interviews. And I came across an interview with Margot talking to Oprah about a movie she had just done with Gary Busey called The Tribulation. And Oprah asked her, what exactly did that movie mean to you? And are you a spiritual person? And Margot said, it's funny. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of that. That was just a paycheck to me. Wow. And I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Because that's when reality hit me that Margot was just like you, just like me. She's a soul on her way to heaven or hell. And at that time, she was most certainly on her way to hell. And so I couldn't get her off my heart. And I prayed that night for God to please send somebody to tell Margot about Jesus before it was eternally too late. And God really convicted my heart. What about you? You're going to meet her. You have the truth, so why don't you? So after playing Jonah for a couple days, I got some tracts from my church, and I went to the event, gave out a tract to everybody I met, including Miss Kidder. Everybody was receptive. And that's how the ministry was from age 13 to 20. I would go to different events like that of who I wanted to meet, and I would take tracts, give them to these celebrities, and I would normally Google and research what this person believed so I could kind of be mentally prepared for what response, what reaction I would get.
Now, all that took place over quite a few years, and you mentioned on your website a really important story that took place in 2015. You got to meet famous singer-songwriter James Taylor. Big fan of him. Certainly a lot of people are. Why was that meeting so instrumental?
Well, that was the wake-up moment from God. I, at the time, was not a big James Taylor fan. I love him now. I absolutely adore him. But a friend of mine asked me, because it was, for a while I didn't tell people that I gave tracts to celebrities.
Sure.
But then slowly people started realizing that. And somebody said, are you going to go meet James Taylor and give him any material? I said, I don't think so. And my friend said, really? Why not? And I just kind of tiptoed around it. But I knew in my heart why not. Because I wasn't a fan. Because I didn't care. And my friend said, I really think you should research him. So I thought, okay. And I kind of loosely Googled him, and immediately an interview from the Rolling Stone back in 1990 popped up. They asked him, they said, you mention God and Jesus a lot in your songs. Are you a Christian? Are you a strong spiritual person? He said, it's funny. It's almost the exact opposite. I'm agnostic.
Wow.
He said, both of my parents were atheists. I was not raised in church with any faith. And nobody's really showed me or told me anything, but I would be open to listen if somebody would just take the time to show me. So I was sitting there at my computer and I thought, oh boy, here we go. And so I told my friend, I think I'm going to go after him. He said, yeah, I thought you would. And I remember telling my mom, I wish I had the time to say this, this, and this to him. Because there's so many interviews. I mean, Anybody listening, you Google James Taylor religion, stuff comes up like crazy. And my mom said, well, why don't you write him a letter? And I thought, that's a really good idea. And so at that point, I'd already developed I'm trying to think how to word it, but I'd already started giving celebrities a Bible with some different tracts. And so wrote him a letter and added that with it. And I missed him in Knoxville. That's the first place I tried to meet him. And I was like, oh well, I tried. And then God really convicted my heart. He's going to be in Greensboro, North Carolina later this week. And I was like, I know. And I was able to find out what hotel he was staying at in Greensboro. And so I went to North Carolina, found him at his hotel, and I sat in the parking lot all day. And the tour bus started to pull away, and I'd been watching it all day, and he'd never come out of the hotel. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. So it was at that point, it was worst case scenario. I got out of my car and held up his new CD that I'd bought to flag him down. And the brake lights come on. Tour bus door opens. There's James Taylor, and he, in that sweet, soft-spoken voice, oh, I'm sorry, were you waiting on me? And I was in shock at that point. And I was just kind of, uh-huh. And he started signing the CD. There were several people at the hotel going to his concert that night who, he got flooded. Sweet as could be. Didn't rush anybody. And as he was signing my autograph, he just started talking to me about drugs and alcohol and warning me of the dangers of it. And I said, Mr. Taylor, why are you telling me that? He said, well, because you're a fan of me. You would be more prone to listen to me than somebody else. And I know the dangers that are down that road. And I just wanted to warn you about that before you went down that road. And I told him, I said, it's so funny, Mr. Taylor. I'm here for almost the exact same reason with you today. And I gave him the gift, gave him the letter, and I told him, I read your interview. This is exactly why I'm here. I love and care about you. And I know what awaits you down the road you're heading down. And I want you to avoid that. And he gave me a hug after we talked a little bit, and he said, that interview was 15 years ago, and you're the first person to tell me anything.
Wow.
And which amazes me after him still publicly stating that, saying, I'd be open if anybody would take the time. Nobody had taken the time. And we parted ways. The last thing he said to me before getting in the bus, he said, Dylan, this is incredibly special to me. I can't tell you how much this means to me. And I drove home that night with the biggest smile on my face, the greatest joy in my heart, not because I met him, but because I knew I'd done what God told me to do. And so when I got back to Chilhowie that night, I drove up to the top of Connor Rock, and there's a little overlook there. At the time, there's no cell phone service there, no distractions, just the night sky. And I prayed and talked to God and completely surrendered my life to him that night. So if you want me to chase celebrities the rest of my life, that's what I'll do. If you want me to become a mechanic, you're going to have to perform a miracle, but I'll do it. I'll do whatever it is you ask me to do. And since then, doors began opening up like crazy. It's amazing.
I want to read a quote that you have on your website. You said, my ministry is to share the gospel with everyone I meet, and many of the people I meet are what this world calls celebrities. It's the forgotten field. As Christians, many of us have written off Hollywood completely, and we've told ourselves there's no hope for these souls, and that it's pointless to even think about praying for them. Why do you think people assume that about them?
There's many reasons why. The biggest reason that comes to my mind is because these people's lives are on the biggest platform. We see everything they do for the most part. If they stumble and make a mistake, everybody knows it.
Right.
And so it's so easy for us to just see, observe, and assume that these people are just awful, evil, despicable people beyond the point of help. When in reality, if our lives were in that spotlight, every mistake we made, we may be in worse shape. And honestly, so many people have the mindset these people are unreachable. And some people have the mindset of what many Christians have a mindset of just in their community. Somebody else will tell them. Somebody else will pray for them. Somebody else will do something. When in reality, God's placed us in certain areas of our life for a purpose, for a reason, even if it's just for one person. Your platform may be one person, maybe 10 million people. But to wrap it up to that question, I truly think it's just because so many people think these people have everything. So what could I offer them that they don't think they already have? Which they have everything this world has to offer, but they don't have what's most important.
Right. What did your friends and family think when you began to explain to them about this celebrity ministry?
Well, some people accused me of Photoshop very early on.
Mm-hmm.
Some people told me this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. Nobody will listen to you. If you really think you're making an impact or changing someone's life, you're crazy. However, I will say my family realized the ministry for what it was, a much needed one. And so I had a lot of support there from the get-go. And then slowly people saw the impact it was having in people by the stories, by responses. And so over time, people have become to accept it more. But early on, a lot of people were just, okay, it's a little out there, which in reality it is. It's a God-given ministry. I could have never dreamed this up.
Now, most people, I think, would agree with this. We all have people we look up to, and most of our life, and I'm a big believer in this, is learned. Everything that we know, everything that we do is learned behavior somehow, some way. You've talked a lot about, and I've read online and heard you speak on Billy Graham a lot. And as I say that, I'm literally looking at a bobblehead on your desk of Billy Graham. But what did he mean to you?
Well, I got to tell you, the bobblehead, I got to tell you a funny story about the bobblehead. The bobblehead came from my friend Maury, who was Billy's right-hand man.
Okay.
And the funny story behind that bobblehead, Billy Graham had a fit over those bobbleheads being made. He thought that they were, at first, making fun of him in ministry. And Franklin Graham had to tell him, no, Dad, it's actually an honor. And then then they're making a big deal of me. They're making me this idol. And he was, Dad, all the proceeds for this go towards the ministry.
Sure.
And then Billy, well, make sure I have one too. But yeah, that's the funny story behind the bobblehead. But yeah, Billy Graham, I always appreciated that no matter how, because let's just be real, he was the most famous evangelist this world's ever seen and may ever see. I love that he never strayed away from the simple gospel, the gospel that Jesus preached. Because so many times there are preachers I'll listen to through their years, and they just try to make everything so fancy and come up with these humongously deep theological messages, which I thoroughly enjoy. But when you're preaching to a crowd of lost people, just the simple gospel. And that's honestly what I've always respected most about Billy. He never let the fame get to his head, and he kept it's just Jesus. And there are so many, I'll listen to his messages on different topics, and I understand what he's saying more than other preachers, not because I don't understand, but just because it's just straight out of the Bible. And one of his quotes, and I'm paraphrasing this, he said, if you want a good sermon, have a lot of scripture, because it's not your words that's going to impact somebody's heart, it's God's word.
Right.
And that's one thing I've always noticed, even through my preaching, the sermons that God's given me, the more I have scripture in there, the more impact it seems to have on people, because it's not me, it's God.
Right.
And so that's one thing I've always looked to Billy Graham for.
So after all these years of seeking out these celebrities and trying to make dates and appointments happen, and all these opportunities to share the gospel and speak to them, and sometimes in short format, sometimes in long, what is your basic preparation process? So
the beginning of every month, I research, honestly, every day things coming around. Obviously, the last 4 months have been completely different with the coronavirus, but write down the dates on my calendar on my phone, who's going to be where, what event. And at the beginning of every month, write it all out on a piece of paper, research those celebrities, and pray over them. And pray for God to show me, all right, who do you want me to go for? Because I could be somewhere every day witnessing to someone. This is before the coronavirus, and once this is passed. Because there's always something happening. Because right now, we're 3 hours from Nashville, an hour from Knoxville. I mean, there's always something going on. It blows my mind what's going on. And so I just pray for God to show me, who is it that you want me to go after? And then after I feel at peace from praying, I will then begin to write them a letter, pick out the different tracts I have that I give out to different celebrities, and give them a Bible, a copy of my friend Tony Nolan's book Gasp, sometimes additional material like if somebody's agnostic, an atheist, Buddhist even, I'll give them a copy of The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel.
Right.
And, sometimes there's still different things in there, but that's the basic preparation that goes behind it.
Where do you think the most common place you meet celebrities are?
It's a toss-up. I go to a lot of these comic conventions because that they're literally there to meet people and talk to people. So there's a lot of good conversations that happen there. So if you look at the numbers, I technically meet more people at an event because that's 30, 40 people in one day.
Right.
Or one weekend. But I travel more to meet people at backstage doors, airports, and hotels normally. So that's where the majority of the travel is.
Have you ever been starstruck?
Yes. I try so hard every single time I go after somebody, especially if it is somebody I'm a fan of, see them for their soul. Like, I'll give you the 2 times I was starstruck the most was Tom Cruise and Harrison Ford. And I'll use Harrison Ford as an example. He was flying in to an airport, and I was inside the private airport in the waiting lobby, and I saw him come out of the plane. He was messing around with the plane, and in my mind I'm going, oh my goodness, there's Indiana Jones. There is Han Solo, because he's my favorite actor.
Sure,
absolutely.
Oh, I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. I would have been right there with you.
And but I was very thankful that God put me in that lobby to look, because in my mind when he walks in here, you cannot see him as Indiana Jones. You cannot see him as Han Solo or Harrison Ford. You need to see a soul who's a Buddhist, who's on their way to hell and needs Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful that I had that moment to collect myself. The Tom Cruise one, Knoxville has a children's charity premiere out at Turkey Creek every year. Doubt they're going to do it this year because of the coronavirus, but they've had, the years I've been there, they've had Jack Black, Channing Tatum, and Tom Cruise. In years past, Hugh Jackman's been there, Miley Cyrus has been there. Again, those last couple names before the ministry. But the year before Tom Cruise was Jack Black. And they have it set up very, very to a T with time. At 7 o'clock, the celebrity has to be doing the interviews, so on and so forth. So, once they get there, all right, how close is it to 7? That's how long I have to get to them. Because even though there's the red carpet, doesn't mean anything. Well, Jack Black got there at like 6:56. So I was like, okay, got 4 minutes to get to him. Awesome. Channing Tatum, when he did it, he got there about 6:55. Tom Cruise got there about 4:15, 4:30. I was, and I'll say I was not mentally prepared for that, but it just blew my mind. I was with a couple friends who collect autographs, and we were standing there talking, and we saw them closing the gates where nobody could walk out on the red carpet. I thought, man, they're doing that a couple hours early.
Sure.
SUV came absolutely flying down the road. Door open, there's Tom Cruise, and in my mind, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's him, and it looks, and it looked like what you see on the news with the Hollywood premieres, and the crowd just absolutely screaming their lungs out. And he just stood there smiling at everybody for a minute, and then he did his hands like, calm down. He said, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go up to that end, and he pointed to the very end of the red carpet. I'm going to work my way down. Once I get a photo and once you get a photo with me and an autograph, step back, let somebody else up. everybody here is going to get at least one autograph and a photo. And I thought, you've got to be kidding
Wow.
me. The biggest name, one of the biggest names in Hollywood is here about 2.5 hours early to make sure he meets everybody. And by golly, he meant it. So, but again, it was one of those deals. It was like God knew. All right, get a moment, and then there's a soul who's a Scientologist who meets Jesus.
What is the furthest place you've ever traveled to meet somebody?
Mileage-wise, Florida.
Okay.
My wife's from Florida, and I met her preaching at a youth event down there. They had me come down. Met her the last day I was there.
She's got a great name, by the way. That's my wife's name also.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's an angel. I love her to death.
And congratulations, by the way. You guys just got married. I failed to
you.
mention that. So, you just got married recently.
Yeah, just last month. We had a coronavirus wedding. It was that was something. Whew, wouldn't go back on that for anything. No, truly, marriage has been great. Planning a wedding was not great. But anytime I flew down to be with her, I would always try to do it where some people were going to be down there.
Right.
So the furthest mileage I would say I've gone, a little over 800 miles, Steve Martin, Howie Mandel, Phil Collins. But driving, a little over 9 hours. I drove to New Jersey to witness to Richard Dreyfuss and Tim Curry, which, unless something changes, the event posted today that they're on full force, I will get to talk with Richard Dreyfuss again here in about 3.5 weeks in Indianapolis.
That's awesome. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are probably wondering this. Are you sponsored or supported in any way with your travel and expense to help you out?
There are some, I go and preach and speak at different churches.
Right.
I'll give a missionary presentation. When a church wants, I'll preach. I love nothing more than preaching. And some of those churches support me monthly. There are some individuals who support me monthly through my website, some through my church. But it's about halfway supported at this point, which is a huge blessing. Truly just a godsend.
When's the first time you realized this is really something? Like somebody or something just stood out to you and you thought, wow, this is starting to get some traction.
When I met President Trump.
Wow.
But he was not president at the time.
Okay.
So the first full year of the ministry was 2015, the summer of 2015, right after James Taylor. And, even though I'd met people and given them tracts before, I was like, all right, how are we going to go about this? And that's when the writing everything out on paper began. And I was watching the news, and, sometimes God will lay a specific person on my heart that I just, quote unquote, have on the radar. Like Howie Mandel, for example. He, my little sister and I, we loved watching America's Got Talent. And there was a choir on there a couple years ago. I can't remember the name of them. But after they sang, Howie said, I feel like I've been baptized. I feel like I've been born again. And I was like, oh my goodness, hearing born again in Hollywood is almost unheard of.
Yeah, I've seen that clip. I know what you're talking about.
It truly, I'm sitting there, I pulled out my phone, started, what does Howie Mandel believe and stuff? And he was raised Jewish. And then there were several other things he said on America's Got Talent through the years. I thought, I would love to talk to this guy. And then God opened the door. I specifically was looking. I was like, all right, he's coming to Sarasota. That's a week I'm going to go to Florida. And so stuff like that happens. But I was watching the news, and Trump is one of those people. And the interviewer was asking him, so you're running for the Republican Party? And he said, yes. They said, are you a Christian? He said, oh, most definitely. And they said, really? And they asked him something about asking God for forgiveness. He said, I've never asked God for forgiveness. And the interviewer looked absolutely floored. They said, what do you mean? He said, I've never done anything wrong against God. Mr. Trump, you're surely not saying you're a perfect person. He said, oh, no, I'm not. But for instance, I slap you in the face. I have to ask you for forgiveness. That didn't involve God. I've never done anything against God. If I'd ever done anything against God, I would most certainly ask for forgiveness. And I thought, wow, that's, it's sad that mindset. But at the same time, it's like, I can see how somebody not being raised in church could have that mindset. And so it was on my radar, keep an eye out for Trump. and he was coming to South Carolina. And I thought, I really want to get to him before Secret Service is issued, because I just had a feeling that this was going to happen. So I got about halfway to South Carolina, and a friend of mine called me and said, bad news. Trump was just issued Secret Service today. I thought, fantastic. And I got to the airport, and it looked like a scene out of a movie. But they were allowing people to stand there to wave at him come off the plane. So I got as close as I could, and I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to stand out with these people? And I made a sign. I always carry cardboard poster board in my trunk to make a sign in case desperate times call for desperate measures. And I will say it has worked many times. Not always, but many times. And I made a sign. I thought, what can I say that'll get his attention? Mr. President, stop, please. And I thought, I'll feed his ego. That'll get his attention. And little did I know it was going to be reality. But held up that sign. He came off the plane, and he immediately pointed in my direction, and he yelled, "You're fantastic." And I yelled, "Will you please come here?" And he just kind of shrugged and said, "Okay." And he started walking towards me. Secret Service got to me first. They said, "Whatever you need out, have out of your pockets where we can see it. If you reach your hand into your pockets at any time, it's not going to be good." So he got over to me. He said, "Your sign didn't specify why you wanted me to stop. You want an autograph or a photo? What do you want?" I should have said $1 million, but kidding. But I said, "Well, Mr. Trump, I would love both of those things, but most importantly, I have a gift I want to give you." And this is an exact quote from our president. He said, "Gifts. Oh, I love gifts. Gimme, gimme, gimme." And so I gave him the Bible and the letter and the tracts. This was before I gave out gas. And he said, "Oh, look at this. This is a beautiful Bible. Here, take a photo of me holding the beautiful Bible and show it to everybody." So if you go on my website or on my social media pages, there's that picture. If you come hear me at a church, I always show that photo. And he handed it to Secret Service, and he said, "Put that on the plane. That better be on there." And it was so funny. There was one of the tracks said, "It's time for you to choose." And it was a picture of it was a silhouette of somebody being inaugurated. And I thought this when I picked up the tracks, but I was like, nah, it's just me. So he was looking through the tracks, and he points to it and looks at me and he said, "That looks like me." And it legit looked like his silhouette. I said, "It does." He said, "It's a sign from God." And I laughed, and I drove home, and I was just on top of the world. I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, look what God pulled off. A week later, my dad came in from the mailbox and had an envelope from Trump Tower. And Mr. Trump had written me a letter saying, "Thank you for the beautiful Bible and your wonderful letter that you made so many very important points about. Sincerely, Donald Trump." And so it was at that point I thought, people are actually reading this material. People actually are paying attention. This could truly change somebody's life. So that was the wake-up moment for me that this isn't for nothing.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a short break real quick, and we'll pick right back up where we left off. So hang tight, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back after a short break. Thank you guys for hanging in with us. I want to pick right back up with Dylan here. How many celebrities currently have you actually encountered?
I've met over 600 different celebrities, but I've had over 700 different encounters, just where I've gone back, seen people multiple times.
Right. Now, what do you think the ratio to, I guess, positive versus negative encounters should be? In other words, like which ones you came away feeling pretty good about, and others you thought, wow, that was not what I thought it would be?
Well, I will say this, the receptive percentage, 99% I would say are receptive, or that don't refuse the Bible or the gift. Of feeling like, wow, that went really well, I'd say 90%. I mean, because sometimes you'll meet somebody and it just does not go anywhere. Like my mindset, and I tell people this all the time, the gift is me opening the door. And, you know, for instance, we'll go back to where we were just talking about Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump, I have you this gift. He looks at the gift, sees what it is, and then they have the choice of pursuing that conversation or, oh, thank you very much. Because, some people would prefer to study or look into something privately, which is why the letter is so important, plus what material is put in. But I would say 90% of the time, there's a conversation gets rolling from that.
What would you say the best encounter you've ever had was?
Jerry Lee Lewis, without a doubt.
Wow.
So last year, Jerry Lee Lewis was playing a concert in Greenville, South Carolina, and I met him at the airport as he was leaving a couple days after the concert. Now, I'd seen an interview of Jerry back in 2015 with The Guardian, and they were talking to him. You were raised in a Christian home. You went to a Christian college. His whole family, very, very religious family. And then they were asking him, what did being a rock and roll singer in a Christian home, what was that like? And Jerry never really answered the question. He went off on a rabbit trail by saying, I wake up almost every night worried I'm going to wake up in hell.
Wow.
I don't think I'm going to heaven. I've lived a terrible life. I'm a terrible person. And his wife cut him off, and she was, no, Jerry, you're going to heaven. Don't worry about it. And he said, no, I don't know that. And then she had the interviewer move on. Ever since I read that, I thought, my goodness, I would absolutely love to talk to him. So I prayed for God to open that door, and he did last February. He came into the airport. His wife was in front of him. He's in a wheelchair. And I just had out his letter, and I just used block Sharpie to write across the envelope. It said, Mr. Lewis. And he just looked at me, started shaking his head no, and I was like, ooh, that's not a good start. And I said, hi, Mr. Lewis, how are you doing? He said, I'm old, I'm tired, and I'm not ready to deal with you people. I said, what do you mean, you people? And he said, you autograph hounds, because he's used to people, just hordes of people getting his autograph, selling it on eBay. And I said, Mr. Lewis, I'm the only one. And he told me, he said, no, you're not. Because once I sign something for you, all your little friends are going to come jumping out. I said, I don't want your autograph. I just wanted to give you this gift. And at that point, his wife turned around. She said, Jerry, is he bothering you? And he's kind of looking at me. He said, I don't think he is, but I'll let you know. And the first thing he pulled out was a tract that said how to make sure you're going to heaven. And he's just lit up. He was smiling ear to ear, and he started wagging it at his wife. He said, Judith, look, he knew exactly what I needed. She said, oh, Jerry, you're going to heaven. Don't worry about that. And he, right there in front of me, he said, I don't know that. I said, well, Mr. Lewis, you could know that today. It doesn't matter that we're here in an airport terminal. And he said, and we talked a second, he said, I would love to talk with you. I'd love to ask you questions, but I'm afraid I'm going to miss my flight. And I said, that's fine. I said, I understand that. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact me. And I told him I put all my information at the back of every material, the Bible, the letter, the tracts, everything. He said, okay, thank you so very much. And we took a photo, and he said, oh, come here, and he gave me an autograph. And so I walked away, and like you and I were just talking about, I was like, man, that went really well. He seemed very open. His wife wasn't nasty. That was really good. And again, kind of like Donald Trump, a week later, went to the mailbox, and there was an envelope, and it said from Jerry Lee Lewis.
Wow. And
I was honestly kind of scared to open it, because Jerry Lee Lewis has never been afraid to speak his mind. And I thought, this could go either way. And I opened it up, and it said, do not worry, Jesus is my personal Savior, Jerry Lee Lewis.
Wow.
And he dated it 2 days after I met him. And I just could not get over how amazing it was that God had put me in his path, and his heart was open. He accepted Christ before it was eternally too late. And a week after that, he had a stroke, had to cancel his entire tour, hadn't left Memphis since then. But he posted on Facebook that he's in the middle of recording a gospel album that he's hoping to have out by the end of the year. So it's just truly, that one, just so encouraging to see how God just truly got a hold of his life just in time. And then now he's using his life to make a gospel album to point others to Jesus.
That's awesome.
And that, as well as I do, there are people who will listen to Jerry Lee Lewis who would not listen to you or me. He's close friends with Mick Jagger, and I'd love to witness to Mick Jagger. I don't know if God will ever open that door, but I will say this confidently: Mick Jagger would listen to Jerry Lee a lot quicker than he'd listen to me.
Now, in reality, obviously not every witness opportunity goes well, and anybody who's ever been saved that's tried to witness to somebody knows that you're going to encounter some feedback, and albeit sometimes negative and sometimes hostile. We're aware of that. You can read the scriptures and find that out for yourself. But what's the worst encounter you've probably had?
Well, before I say the worst encounter, I'll say this. I tell my students, as well as different church congregations, when God leads me to preach a message on witnessing, not every person you witness to will accept Christ, but you will regret every missed opportunity you have that you don't share Christ.
Yeah, that's good.
There are people that God has told me, share the gospel with them. Tell them about Jesus. Invite them to my house. Invite them to church. And I didn't. And it haunts me to this day. There's one soul in particular that always crosses my mind when I preach that. And I pray for God to give me another opportunity again, but it will forever haunt me if I never have that opportunity again. So, saying that, even when somebody is not receptive, I have the fuel to keep going, because not everybody's going to be receptive, but one soul is worth it all. So, by saying that, the worst encounter I've ever had, I'm not going to say this person's name. You and I talked a little bit before the show. It's a very beloved person. And I will say this person was also intoxicated at the time. I didn't know that going into it. And I'd love another opportunity, but it resulted in this person throwing the Bible and cussing me out, telling me I was the creepiest man that he'd ever met. But I will tell you this story with the name, Marky Ramone. I would say Marky Ramone is number 2 from the Ramones. I did not know what he believed going up to him. It was at a comic convention, because sometimes musicians come to comic conventions now, because it's become more of a pop culture event than a comic convention. But God laid it on my heart. Go talk to him. So I took him a gift. Went up to his table. I was, hi, Mr. Ramone, how are you? I'm doing fine. And I gave him the gift. And this was October 2017. It was right after the Las Vegas shooting, like a week after. And he was sitting at a table, kind of like you and I. I was at where you are. And he's looking at the material. He spread it all across the table. And he said, "Why in the world did you bring me this?" And it was a very aggressive tone. I told him, I said, "Well, because I love and care about you and your soul." And as I was saying that, he was locked eye contact with me, and he was slowly sliding the gift bag and the gift across the table until it just all fell on the floor.
Wow.
And I was just like, well, this is really not going to go well. And he said, "I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I want you to get out of my face. Number 1, if there is a God, why does he allow horrible things to happen, just like what happened in Vegas last week?" I said, well, God gives us our own free will. We allowed sin to enter the world. That's a result of sin. It's not a result of God. We have the free will to make our own choices, our own decisions. And he cut me off. He said, "You absolutely disgust me. You are so brainwashed. I can't stand people like you. Just leave. I don't even want to talk to you." But here's the crazy thing, and this is why I know God wanted me to talk to him. I have a friend who manages some celebrities who's also an atheist, who spoke up. He was sitting at the table with another guest right beside Marky, and he got up and he said, "Hey, what are you doing? Why'd you throw all this on the floor?" And he said, "You should know more, do you know what he's doing?" And my friend said, "Yeah, he actually cares about you." He said, "Well, you're a bigger atheist than I am. Why do you put up with him?" He said, "Because I see he genuinely cares about people."
Right.
And he said, "If you can't respect that, you're just despicable." And he said, "Here's what you need to do. You need to pick up this gift, and you need to give him his money back, and you need to take a photo with him so he can get people on his Facebook praying for you." And he said, "Okay, well, I'll give him his money back, but he can pick up the gift." And I was, "I'll pick up the gift." But so that was probably the quote-unquote worst encounter, besides the one I don't want to mention.
Yeah. Who would you say are the most common celebrities that you meet, like actors, musicians, singers, athletes? Who are usually the most common?
I would say it's a toss-up with actors and musicians. It's easier to meet a musician just because they tour, they're around more. And actors, they don't necessarily have to travel, but like we were talking about earlier with conventions, you can meet 20, 30 actors
Right.
in one weekend at a convention. Like, you could go after one musician, multiple, different trips and meet 5 in 1 month, and then go to one convention and meet 20 actors. So if I were to look at my list, I'd say it would go about 50-50 between them.
Who's your best unplanned encounter?
I would say Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
Or Jason Marsden, who was the voice of Max in a Goofy movie.
Right.
I'll tell both of those. It's so funny, Keanu Reeves, I just remember this, same airport as Jerry Lee Lewis in Greenville, South Carolina. I was down there to hopefully witness Ed Asner. And so I'm sitting, it was me and there was another autograph guy there, and he was like, okay, you're doing the same thing I am. I got this door, you got that door. You wave if you see him, and I'll do the same. I was, okay. Because for the most part, everybody up here in the South, they respect the ministry. They know that I'm not somebody trying to cause trouble. Because at first, one of my best friends, who was just an autograph collector, he was worried at first that I was Westboro Baptist. And I was, no, I'm far from Westboro Baptist.
Sure,
In my letter, I always even let them know, let me assure you I'm not Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, or Westboro Baptist. Because I've actually had a couple celebrities say, you're not with West if I can talk. A couple celebrities say, you're not with Westboro Baptist, are you? And I'm, no. And they, yeah, you didn't look like it. And I was like, what gave it away? Me not screaming or the no picket signs?
No picket signs,
So anyway, I'm at the Greenville, South Carolina airport waiting on Ed Asner. And there's a flight comes in from Atlanta. And here comes an entourage, and Keanu Reeves is in the middle of it. And as he walked by me, I thought, no, there's no way that was him. So I'm on my phone Googling, is Keanu Reeves supposed to be in Greenville, South Carolina? There's nothing. Nothing is popping up. So I'm like, that just might be his twin. I'm going crazy looking for somebody. Then the other guy came up to me. He said, that was John Wick. I was like, okay, it wasn't just me. So we went, this is probably the creepiest / stalkerish thing I've done. Keanu and his buddies are at one end of the baggage claim. We go to the other where the baggage is actually coming out. And we acted like we were looking for our own baggage. And I was looking for the names on the baggage. And sure enough, there was one that said LAX to Greenville, Reeves, Keanu. I was like, I think it is him. that or there's a exact twin with the same name and everything. So at that point, I start Googling Keanu Reeves' religion real quick. And he's agnostic. Ed Asner's agnostic. At that point, I'd realized I'd missed Ed Asner 100%. He had already had to go through security and be on the plane. So I had every bit of the material I needed to witness to somebody who was agnostic, minus the letter. Because obviously the letter was to Mr. Asner. I'm not going to give that to Keanu.
Right.
So I started walking up to someone. I said, Mr. Reeves? He said, shh, be quiet. And I said, okay, walk with me. And he's muttering under his breath. He said, you see that group of ladies over there? They've been staring at me since I came off the plane. They're not for sure who I am, and they don't want to make the first move. I don't want them all over me, bugging me.
Right.
You and your buddy, he could tell my buddy was with me. He's like, y'all have made the move. You're going to get what you want. But we're not dealing with that. I can tell they want to be obnoxious. And I said, okay. He said, but I got to ask you, how the heck did you know I was coming? I said, I didn't. He said, no. I'm not going to be mad. Just tell me how you knew. I said, I legit did not know, Mr. Reeves. And I just explained to him. I'm here waiting on Ed Asner. And he said, well, that's quite a coincidence. I said, I don't believe in coincidence. And you're preaching to me already. And he said, all right, when we get to the door, that's my SUV right there. Take a selfie, and I'll grab the gift. And so that's exactly what he said.
Sure.
Selfie, took the selfie, took the gift. He said, I really appreciate that. It's really nice of you. Thank you. So I was like, well, I thought I was going to meet the guy from Mary Tyler Moore's show, but that went. And I sent it to my prayer team, and they're like, that's definitely not Ed Asner.
Yeah, not the same,
And then Jason Marsden, I was waiting on Sally Field at the Nashville airport, and Morgan and I had witnessed Jason Marsden at a comic book convention back in June. This is in September. And constantly when you're at an airport, you just have to be looking at every single face. And I thought, that guy across from me looks so familiar. And then he keeps looking at me. And he motioned me over, and so I started walking towards him, and I was like, that's Jason Marsden. And he said, do we know each other? Because you look really familiar. I said, we don't know each other, but we met just a few months ago. And I said, my girlfriend and I. He said, that's right. Fanboy Expo in Knoxville. You gave me the Bible stuff. He said, man, that's so cool that I see you. He said, I get to tell you, I've got all that in my office. I've been reading it and looking at it. I really appreciate you guys. And we'd had a really good conversation at the convention. So it was just so funny to see him, randomly. And we didn't have a deep theological conversation or anything, but it was just small talk. He said, are you here waiting on your girlfriend? I said, no. I said, I'm waiting on Sally Field. He said, oh, that's nice. And he said, I said, are you waiting on your girlfriend? He said, yeah, she, we're long distance like you said you guys were. He said, I'm really hoping that your girlfriend was coming, because I embarrassed Morgan. She had a crush on Max as a little girl. So I put her on the spot when we met him, and he remembered that. He said, I was going to go running up to her and give her a hug. I said, that would have been the funniest thing. So we took a selfie, and he had a rose for his girlfriend, and he held it up in the photo. He said, you tell her that I had her a rose. So those are the two best not planned encounters.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Harrison Ford and Tom Cruise earlier, but who would you classify as the most famous celebrity you've crossed paths with?
I would have to say Tom Cruise, probably.
And you've only met him once, I think?
Only met him one time. Yeah.
Do you ever stay in touch with a lot of these individuals more than just, hey, we've met twice at different... Does anybody... You mentioned Jerry Lee Lewis wrote you a letter. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody that's really corresponded with you?
Two people. I have two celebrities' numbers. Peter Robbins, the voice of Charlie Brown.
Okay.
He and I stay in touch, honestly, pretty much every week. He, if you want to Google him, you'll see he's been through a whole lot the past few years. And he actually, I won't take up the time on the show to explain it all, but he got out of prison 3 weeks before I met him at a comic convention. And we had a really, really nice conversation. And we exchanged contact information. And he actually handed me his phone. He said, put your number in. I'll give you a call after I read your friend's book, Gasp, and look at your letter. And he called me about a week before Christmas and thanked me for it. We had a nice conversation. He said, I'd really like to stay in touch with you. I'm going through a lot. I need some guidance. And by that, he meant spiritual guidance.
Yes.
And so he said, let's just check in on each other once in a while. And then once the coronavirus hit, I called him and asked him how he was doing. He said, why don't we just check in on each other every week and see how we're doing? And we've had a lot of really good conversations. And the other celebrity's number I have is Randy Jones from the Village People.
Okay. Now, you shared this on your Facebook before, and I've noticed, this probably hits home a lot, especially when you've met with these people. But what goes through your mind when you find out some of these people you've witnessed to passed away?
Heartbreak. Because just 2 years ago, Margot Kidder passed away.
Right.
And of course, in my mind, I'm like, she's who really began the ministry. And she is such an outspoken atheist. I did meet her twice. And she was always very, very sweet. But sadly, both times she did not seem to waver very much from her beliefs. And so, of course, the first thought that goes through your mind is, where are they now? I had one friend text me one time after Chris Cornell passed away. I never witnessed a Chris Cornell, but anytime a celebrity dies, people text me, did you witness to them, et cetera, et cetera. But this one friend said, hey, I know you never met him, but I just wanted to let you know I said a prayer for him as soon as I heard he passed, which I just kind of sat there looking at my phone, shaking my head. I thought, it's too late. The time. Yeah. And that's why I tell people, the time to do something about somebody's soul is now. You can't wait until you read somebody's obituary to say, I wonder if they knew Jesus. The time to ask them is now. The time to pray for them is now, because once they've taken that last breath, they're in eternity. But one thing I do try to do after I hear somebody's passed, besides I make a Facebook post and ask people to pray for their family, But before I do that, I try to research real quick, see if they said anything else, in an interview or anything before they passed. And the most encouraging story of that is Burt Reynolds. I met him 3 times before he passed, and that man had one of the best memories I've ever encountered with celebrities, because they meet hundreds of people every day, and truly in their mind, we all look the same pretty much.
Right.
And I met Mr. Reynolds leaving his hotel in Knoxville. He was filming a movie. He was with his manager, and his manager was, no, he's not signing anything. I said, no, just want to give him a gift. It was, truly 30 seconds. It was enough to shake his hand, give him the gift, and Burt said, if you want to take a selfie, you can. Met him a year and a half later at a convention, and he looked at me. He said, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing good. How are you doing? You're doing good. I still have that gift you gave me. I said, are you serious? You remember that? Yeah, I remember that. You threw your car in the park in the middle of the road. How could I forget that? Because, long story short, I was trying to get multiple people in the same day. And so I was heading back to Burt's hotel. And I was having to drive through. It was down by UT. And I was at a red light. And I looked over where the hotel was, and I saw Burt walking out. And there was no time to wait for that red light. I just kind of pulled the car over to the side as fast as I could, threw on the hazard lights, and ran over. And he evidently saw that. So we had a nice conversation at the convention. And then I saw Burt in March of 2018, right before, just a few months before he passed. And he said, there's my boy. You got anything for me today? And I did. And he said, I read everything that you give me. And so he always haunted me, because he told me the second time I met him, he said, there's only one thing that you said in your letter that I didn't like. I said, really? What's that? He said, you said forever's too long to be wrong. That kind of freaked me out. And I said, Mr. Reynolds, and I opened the Bible I had gotten him that day. And I had written that inside the Bible. That's the first time I ever wrote it in the Bible. And he said, that's freaky. I said, no, that's God. And then the last time I met him, after he said, I read everything you give me. I said, well, you know why, don't you? He said, because forever's too long to be wrong. That never left his mind. So, of course, when he passed, I'm trying to find something. And there's an actor here in the Tri-Cities who's done some background work, who was at the same event where Burt had his last event before he passed. And he mentioned in his Facebook post that Burt was asking his daughter about spiritual things. So I reached out to this guy and I said, hey, would you mind, I understand if this is too personal, but would you mind explaining to me what Burt asked your daughter, or what he talked about? And I quickly explained, because this guy is a professing Christian on Facebook.
Sure.
This is my ministry, here's why. And he said that Burt pointed out her cross necklace, and he said, what's that mean to you? And she said, well, it's a cross, it's pretty. And he said, but what does it mean? And she says, well, I believe in God. I'm a Christian. He said, but do you know Jesus? And this was just a few weeks before he passed. So there are cases like that I'm incredibly encouraged after their passing, because I've talked to several people since then. I truly believe Burt accepted Christ before he passed, but that's always the thought process.
Awesome. Well, on that note, let's take another quick break, and we'll be right back with some finishing talk here with our good buddy Dylan. Hey, we're back with our buddy Dylan, the celebrity evangelist again, picking right back up where we left off. We're going to shift gears for just a second, but Dylan, you recently got married, and we talked about that just a moment ago, so big congratulations there. But how has your wife assimilated into your ministry?
She's a humongously wonderful addition to the ministry, because it's so funny. And I say this jokingly, but it's real. There are some people who will stop a lot quicker for a pretty woman than they will some ugly old guy like me.
Right.
I will just throw this story out there for fun. If it weren't for her, I truly don't believe I would have been able to witness to Phil Collins.
Wow.
He's not in the greatest shape. He's in a wheelchair now. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Phil's beliefs, he's been up and down with his beliefs, and he even wrote a song about Evangelist called Jesus Knows Me. He did it with Genesis. I highly encourage everybody not to just listen to the song, but watch the music video. And it'll really give you an idea of where his mind is with religion. Which, again, I tell people all the time, I'm not with any religious organization. I don't claim to follow any religion. I follow the Bible. I have a relationship with Christ. And I really wanted to meet Phil and witness to him. Morgan absolutely adores Phil, which who doesn't?
Sure.
He's one of the best musicians of all time. And I surprised her with tickets to go see him. And I told her, I said, we're taking those tickets with us as we try to talk to him, because some people even say, do you have tickets to the show? And I try to find out who does that, because I don't want to have to buy a ticket unless I have to. But with Phil, I thought this could just help. Plus, it'd be a fun date night for her. So it was me and her, probably 5 other guys out there waiting. She's the only girl out there. And Phil came out of the hotel in a wheelchair, and we're all, Mr. Collins, Phil, and he waved his hand, and he said, nope, not today, boys, I'm sorry. I'm not feeling the best, which it was obvious he wasn't feeling well. So I grabbed Morgan's hand. I said, you get in the front, get in the front. And I've told her, I promise I'm not using you, and she knows that. But I said, say something. And she, Mr. Collins, we have tickets to the show tonight. That man stopped dead in his tracks and turned and looked at her, and she said, my boyfriend and I, we just want to give you this gift. And he looked at his manager. Do they really have tickets? And his manager walked over. Yep, they have tickets. Line everybody up. I'll sign 1 per person. And I was like, oh my goodness. But she also brings a calming spirit to the ministry. She brings so much more to it than just a pretty girl who can get people's attention. There are many times, I believe, that people are calmer to talk and open up, realizing, hey, this isn't just some radical, crazy guy all by himself. It's, hey, here's a guy, and now my wife, and she's so easy to talk to, and she's very, very understanding of everybody and what they've been through. And she, of course, helps me research. She knows going into it what somebody believes, their personality, and I've found it that she can really help bring people's walls down. And then now with my youth and college ministry here at Henard's Chapel, she's a humongous addition to help with that. She's just fantastic. Most spiritual, godly woman I've ever met.
How's this ministry open a door for you to speak and preach at churches and youth events? I'm sure you get quite a bit of travel mileage on that side of things as well.
Oh, yeah. It's honestly, the ministry is what opened the door for that. I'd never preached prior to this ministry. I didn't preach the first time to a church until 2017. And I'll say this is just a funny story for all the listeners. The first time I preached, I had 5 minutes notice. I was preaching at a church in Irwin, Tennessee, and I absolutely love the pastor of this church, and he and I are very close friends now, but I didn't know him that well at the time. We'd met one time prior, and he said, hey, Dylan, me and the deacons always bring the guest speakers and missionaries into the prayer room, and we pray over them before they share their ministry. And I said, okay, great. So we go into the prayer room, and we're all praying. And the preacher, he says, Lord, please be with Dylan as he brings the message this morning. And my eyes shot open. I said, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, as soon as the prayer was over, I said, Pastor, did you say bring the message? Yeah, God just laid it on my heart. When did he lay it on your heart? Oh, just when we were praying. Really? I really wish you would have laid it on your heart like 12 hours ago at least. And so I ran out to my display table, and I had a Romans Road tract. That was my sermon outline. Right. It was horrible. It was really bad. I refused to watch it. But that began to open the doors, believe it or not. That just showed that God's in control. It's not some powerful sermon. It's what God wants. And this ministry really has opened the door to share with youth groups, camps, and churches all across the country. Again, that's how I met my wife. I was booked to preach for a weekend event in Florida. Met her the last day I was there. And it's just crazy to see how God had everything lined up perfectly. And I tell students, this is a testimony. If you don't follow God and His plan, there's no telling what you're going to miss out on. I'd have missed out on the greatest blessings of my life. And as you were saying, you know, I love being booked at churches, and even though I'm on staff here at Hennard's Chapel now, they still allow me to go speak at youth groups, camps, churches, and revivals. So if anybody out there is looking for somebody to speak at their church or share with their youth, please contact me through my social media or my website. I'd love to get in touch with you.
Something I think about a lot, and I think you'll resonate with this, and I think a lot of our audience will as well. Sometimes, especially for people that's been on the road a while, I almost find it easier to witness to somebody I've never met. And I don't know why that is. You know, I've traveled to foreign countries and, you know, be thrown right in the ringer, and you got hundreds of people that can't speak your language, and you're using an interpreter, and I'm right at home, you know, or I walk up to somebody I've never met and, hey, so-and-so would like to talk to you, and, you know, you fire away. But sometimes family members, it's hard. Do you think it's easier sometimes to witness to celebrities than it is maybe somebody in your own life?
100%. Yes. It's funny you mentioned family. My dad's parents are actually Jehovah's Witnesses. Huge fans of me, not. But it is so much harder to witness to them than a celebrity. And again, as you were saying, it's harder to witness to somebody you know than a stranger. And the reason I think it's easier to witness to a celebrity is, for the most part, I can find out what that person believes before I ever open the door. So I'm already fully mentally prepared. Here's what I may have to say. Here's some scripture I may have to quote. Here's some points I'm going to have to make.
Right.
I also know their personality, who's approachable, who is more prone to have walls up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's much easier to witness to somebody who's a celebrity, in my opinion, than, say, go down to Food City and witness to somebody in the produce aisle. You have no idea what you're up against. But I think the reason it's so much harder to witness to friends and family is just because we are so afraid of that awkward interaction, that awkward moment where, and honestly, it's a selfish mindset, and I'm guilty of it. I think every Christian can say they're guilty of it. But I'll say this as a testimony to encourage people to please witness to your friends and family. My wife used to work at a coffee shop in Florida, and one of her coworkers, she told me, she said, they had a great relationship, big friends, but she knew that her friend was not a Christian. And she asked her friend one day, do you know if you're on your way to heaven? I'm paraphrasing, I forget. She probably asked it much smoother than that. But her friend was, I'm pretty sure I am, which our guest speaker here at Hennard's just yesterday said, if you're 99% sure you're saved, you're 100% lost. So if you're only 99% sure, you're pretty sure you're going to heaven, you're 100% aren't. Because the Bible says that you know that you're saved.
Right.
And so Morgan started witnessing to her friend, and her friend was just kind of shut the door. And I remember Morgan called me that day, and she said that was one of the most awkward conversations I've ever had. And things were awkward between them for a couple days. Then got back to normal, no problem. But slowly her friend started lowering her wall, talking about God, talking about church. And now her friend is a born-again believer, was actually one of the bridesmaids in our wedding.
Wow.
And this lady, she told Morgan, she said, I cannot thank you enough for asking me the most uncomfortable question ever. Because she said, I got in the car after work and thought, well, I never want to talk to Morgan again. And, I'm sure if we had a video of people's reaction after we witnessed to him, sometimes it could be very similar. And honestly, it could be discouraging, but it planted that seed.
Right.
It got her thinking. And then she realized Morgan was somebody she could talk to, somebody who wouldn't judge her, somebody who would be open to hear anything that they may have to ask. And that just led them down the road to Christ.
That's a great story. Now, obviously, you've talked about this already. Very passionate about youth ministry, and you've got a chance to speak to a lot of kids all over the South and stuff. But what's usually their response when they hear about your ministry? And here's this guy taking a stand to tell people about the Lord, and he's diving right in. This is not one of those like, we're taking the training wheels off and we're getting right out there now. So what's usually the feedback you get from younger people?
It's usually about exactly what you would expect of youth. Some don't care at all, and then there's some who are really interested. I'll again tell this story to kind of say here's how God's used it. I was preaching at this youth group in Myrtle Beach, and this church is located right next to this neighborhood full of kids. And the youth pastor down there is a very dear friend of mine, one of the best youth pastors I've ever met. He has pizza for his kids every week. He's outside playing basketball before the service, trying to get kids to come play basketball with him. And then it's, hey, come inside, have pizza. Hey, we're having church. And so I'm inside setting up. He's outside playing basketball. And I didn't know everything going on behind the scenes at the time. But he was inviting these girls in to have pizza. And they said, but do we have to stay? He said, no, you don't have to stay. You can come in, have pizza, and leave. So they were, okay. They come in, and I was getting my slideshow ready, and I had my picture with Cardi B up. They freaked out. Oh, my goodness, have you met Cardi B? And I was, yeah. Oh, my goodness, are you going to talk about her tonight? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. And they just, front row. And I thought, you're not going to like what I say here in a minute, but because that should be classified in one of the bad encounters.
Yeah.
But that God used that to draw those girls in. Those girls started coming regularly every week, and I know for a fact one of them has gotten saved.
Wow.
So there are some kids who would see the ministry, and it's just like me when I was 13, realize these are souls going to heaven or hell. Some were just interested in hearing about their favorite celebrity or their crush. I had a girl, we were having a Q&A one time at a church with a youth ministry. And this girl raised her hand unashamedly in front of everybody and asked me if Channing Tatum smelled good. I had to repeat it at least twice because I was like, the first time I thought, surely no. And then the second time I thought, I want to really take it in and enjoy that question because that is the weirdest question I've ever gotten. So it's a mixed reaction. Some very intrigued and some like, oh, okay, weirdo. You stalk celebrities. No, not exactly.
Is that the most common objection you get? Is that you're just doing this for personal gain?
I've been accused of that several times, which is funny. The reason why I was telling you earlier, for years people didn't even know I gave out tracts to celebrities. The reason I didn't tell people that is because I was so worried of somebody thinking I was saying, look at me, because that's not what this ministry is about at all. It never will be. But the reason I started posting so publicly is because it was just, what I was telling you, it's a forgotten field. People have forgotten to pray. People don't care. But when you put it out there publicly on social media, it becomes a reality. It becomes more of somebody's focus. And so the most common objection I do get is, oh, you're just doing this to become famous yourself. You're just doing this to meet celebrities, et cetera, et cetera. And that can be discouraging. A lot of times, like when an article is shared, a news article or something that has to do with the ministry, I've told my wife, I said, you got to make sure I quit looking at the comments because for every encouraging comment, there's a few horrible comments. Like somebody just a few months ago, they were saying, this guy, this is a very dangerous ministry. He's going to get sucked into Hollywood secularism and Hollywood mindset. And, some people don't realize the ministry for what it is. Some people think that I'm in Hollywood partying with celebrities or that I'm friends with celebrities. Right. And I've never been to California in my life. All this, for the most part, everything's within 6 hours of the Tri-Cities area. Another huge mistake people make is thinking that I am just trying to become friends with the celebrities, which I became friends with somebody like Peter Robbins through that. That's wonderful. That's great. But all of these encounters, none of them have been scheduled. It's always just meeting somebody at a back door or walking up to somebody at an autograph signing. So there's, the discouraging is the personal gain, getting sucked into Hollywood, or somebody saying, I've had somebody say he's a false prophet, which I don't get that. I go strictly out of the Bible, nothing else.
Now, we're going to pry into your schedule a little bit if we can, because I'm confident that whoever hears this, I don't think the celebrity's probably going to be listening into Deeply Rooted, but so I don't think there's any alarm about tipping them off. But who would you say is on your list as far as somebody you're looking forward to meeting, whether it be soon or maybe down the road, somebody you've always had your eye on you'd love to meet?
The next celebrity that I'm hoping to witness to is either this Thursday or Friday, Rob Schneider.
Right. We talked, and I want to share this with people on here. You gave me a really good story the other day. We were texting about this, and it looked like our wires might get crossed a little bit just because the scheduling changed. But you told a really good story about him I'd like you to share about the Bible.
Oh, yeah. So I met Rob 2 years ago, same comedy club, which is really good. It was...
And this is in Nashville, right?
This is in Nashville.
Yep.
It was some of the worst weather I've ever waited for somebody in. I mean, I was actually in the area to preach. And it's so funny. I was talking to a buddy of mine on the phone, and he said, "Why in the world are you out there in that weather?" I mean, it was bad. I said, I wouldn't have come out here for $1 million. I would not have traveled to Nashville because of the weather forecast, but I was already in town to preach. I was like, what do I have to lose?
Right.
And, again, that was God worked that out to every detail from me being there to the weather being bad, because I'm standing by the backstage door. I've got an umbrella. I looked ridiculous. SUV pulls up, but there's SUVs in Nashville all the time, so you don't think of anything. The window cracks, and I can't see who it is, but I knew the voice. It was Rob Schneider. And he says, "Yo, man, how much for that umbrella?" and I said, "What's that?" And he rolled down the window more. He said, "I'm not lying. How much for that umbrella?" And I said, "Well, I'll just give it to you if you'll take this gift." "What are you doing out here? Are you waiting on me?" I said, "Yeah." "Are you crazy?" I said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "All right, well, how about we just do this? They're going to park the car up here. I'm going to koala bear hug you. Like, I'm going to grab on you. We're going to koala bear hug. No homo," which I'm cracking up because he's being Rob Schneider. Right. It's fantastic. And he said, "And you're going to basically carry me into the venue, and I'll look at your gift. We'll take a photo and stuff in the dressing room. That way we're not getting rained on. And then I'll keep your umbrella." I said, "All right, sounds good." And that's exactly what we did.
Wow. And
as we were coming to the backstage door, I noticed a security guard walking towards us. And of course, it's like, oh no, please leave me alone. Because that's truly, one of the biggest things with the ministry. Yeah. Sometimes people are, nope, you can't be here. Even if it is a public sidewalk, makes it a big enough ordeal, you have to leave or do something. So anyway, Rob said, "It's okay. He's with me. We're cool." And the guy said, "Oh, I know who he is. He's the celebrity evangelist. He's a good guy." And my mouth about dropped. Wow. I thought, how in the world do you know who I am? And he said, "I'll talk to you in a minute." And I was, okay. Well, then it turned out he wasn't the security guard. He was the manager at the comedy club. He walked into the dressing room with us, and Rob, "Celebrity evangelist, explain." That I'm intrigued now. So I gave him a very quick rundown. This is what I do. And he said, "So are you with an organization?" I said, No, it's just me, which, I know you're probably going to ask, where do you hope to see the ministry? And we'll talk about that, but sure. I don't want to see it ever become an organization, just strictly because of encounters like this. Yeah. Because it takes away from that intimate meeting that, God laid you specifically on my heart. And so I told him, I said, "No, this is a ministry I started by myself because I love and care about souls, and you all are a forgotten field." He said, "Okay, well, I'm not really going to talk about my beliefs much, but I would love to hear yours." And so we sat there, and he was raised Jewish, but that's all he would say, and I'm fine with that. And he listened very intently to everything I said, took a photo together, and he said, "Yeah, you have a good one." And the manager was standing there, and he said, "Rob, I'll be back in a minute. I want to talk to Dylan." "Okay." And Rob, "Oh, yeah, you're fine. Take your time." And I said, "How in the world do you know who I am?" And he told me, he said, "Well, you met another comedian here one time," and I always just look, hashtag who was just here. I like to see the photos. And I saw your photo, and I knew you were the guy who gave him the Bible. So I thought, let me check out this guy. And he said, I've been fascinated by your ministry. And he said, if I can ever do anything to help, let me know. Fortunately, that manager's no longer there. But before he left last year, he sent me a message. Rob Schneider was there again last year. I was somewhere else. And he messaged me, he said, are you coming to see Rob this weekend? I said, no, unfortunately, I'm busy. He said, he asked about you. I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, he got here, and he said, where's the kid with the Bible? And he said, I told him, I guess he's not here. He said, I thought he'd come talk to me again. And I said, oh, man, I really wish I could. And he said, yeah, he took everything you gave him except the Bible. I said, really? He didn't take the Bible? He said, no. He said, I'm not worthy to have a Bible. And he said he signed the Bible and he left it in the dressing room. And he said, you tell anybody who comes, they can have it. But I'm not worthy to have it. And so, I just think it's crazy that Bible has been sitting in that comedy club dressing room for almost 2 years now. And, because I'm sure some people are like, wow, we don't normally see that in our dressing room. And he said, Rob left it there. We're not leaving we're not moving what Rob Schneider left. But it just broke my heart to think of somebody saying, I don't deserve the Bible. I'm not worthy of that. And so the comedy club is just opening back up. And I thought, what better way to start the ministry back up after the coronavirus than seeing Rob again? And so I'm excited to talk to him. I will say, be praying. There's a comedian who was just at the comedy club this past weekend. Prayed about going, didn't feel at peace. Turns out he collapsed on stage, has coronavirus. So I was actually supposed to be in that. You know this. I was supposed to be witnessing to David Spade tonight there at that comedy club, but they canceled the next few days of shows to clean. They haven't canceled Rob yet. I pray they won't. And Rob very openly has spoken. He doesn't care about the coronavirus, so I really am not nervous about talking to him. So that's coming up. And then Tony Stewart's over at the Speedway this weekend. I've never been over to this local Speedway, so I don't know what accessibility I'll have. But I feel like I'm probably going to go over there and give it a try. Never hurts. Sure. And I specifically wanted to talk to him again. I've met him before. Richard Dreyfuss, hopefully touching base with him in Indianapolis in a few weeks. Several people are going to be at that event. Brad Dourif, who was Chucky. His daughter made some very interesting comments. She was in the TV show The Purge, played a religious person, and she was interviewed and said, how did you prepare to play a religious person? And she said, I just listened to interviews of Christians and evangelicals, and she said, just blew my mind. These people actually have a hope of something beyond this. And if you go to my website, I have a link called Join the Mission, and it's of upcoming people, and I have that quote there. It's really interesting. And then the last one I'll mention, the big one, I was supposed to witness to Motley Crue at the end of this month. And a friend of mine, actually as a wedding gift, bought me a backstage meet and greet with the entire band, because I have a list of celebrities that I'm wanting to witness to someday, like I was saying with the Radar, that I just keep an eye on. And Nikki Sixx, the bass player, is one of them. He's obsessed with God. He's been pronounced dead twice. And a few years ago, he made a Facebook post. He said, question, do you believe in God? Yes or no? Explain your answer. I'll be reading every comment. And so I put in mine, and I was honestly shocked how many people are on there were telling him the truth. Yeah. And right now I can't, it's not at the top of my head, some of his quotes, but he's searching for God. He's even written songs about searching for him. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, well, Motley Crue split up now. He's a record producer in L.A. He's not going to come out. And then Motley's doing this huge reunion tour with Def Leppard and Poison. And then, of course, the coronavirus went and changed all that. So that's actually been postponed to June of next year. Okay. But that gives me more time to research, to prepare. So those are my specific upcoming prayer requests.
Now, you alluded to it, and we'll close out with this question before we get into some of the closing talk here. But where would you like to see this ministry in the future?
I would love to see it become 100% fully supported, and the first thing I would do is every single Bible that I give out would be embroidered with that person's name.
Okay.
I do that sometimes. I'm actually going to go tomorrow to get a Bible imprinted for Rob Schneider.
Yeah.
Because Morgan and I were talking and we thought, and she actually said the idea first. He said he wasn't worthy to have the Bible. Why don't we put his name on one? And I told her, I said, that's fantastic. And so I'd love to do that, because every time I've done that for somebody, it's had wonderful reactions. And I always put their legal name. Like, I met Joe Perry from Aerosmith last year, and I can't even pronounce his legal name, but I put that on there, and he absolutely flipped out. He said, this is the coolest thing ever.
Wow.
You put my name on the book. That's the best. So I would love to see that. I would love to be able to travel more, because like I was saying, I could be somewhere every day. I have to pray about it because I want to be a good steward of the money that God's blessed me with. And these conventions and like the meet and greet, they're very, very expensive.
Sure.
Like my friend who bought me that Motley Crue meet and greet, that's $2,500.
Yeah.
I do not have $2,500 to do that. And he was telling me, he said, I grew up a Motley fan. God's blessed me with the ability to give you that. I could never listen to their music and think I had the opportunity to get the gospel in front of them, and I didn't do it. So, and then like these conventions, honestly, the cheapest person is $40. Some, depending on their level of fame, more. Like William Shatner, when I saw him in February, he's over $100 to meet him. And I'm trying to think of some others, like Richard Dreyfuss, he'll be at least $80, if not more. And so if the ministry grew more financially, there would be a lot more opportunities. There'd be a lot more ability to improve the gift bags. Like I was saying, I don't want to see it become an organization, just simply because all it takes is one person to see it as, oh, I'm just a number.
Sure.
I'm just a business plan, and that's not what it is at all.
Well, let's help everybody get in touch with you here. We'll kind of close out with this for the program today. And again, thank you so much, man, for taking time out. I know we've had a lengthy conversation, but it's been great, and I'm confident this is going to help a lot of people and hopefully your ministry as well. But talk a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, or at least follow you on social media. What are your platforms?
Well, if anybody has any questions about the Bible, witnessing, or most importantly, about their soul and eternity, feel free to message me on any of these things I'm about to mention at any time. I'd love to talk with you. But you can stay up to date through my Instagram and Facebook. They're both Celebrity Evangelist. You can go to my website, www.celebrityevangelist.org, and you can see an event page where I'm going to be preaching. You can see Join the Mission, which is how you can get involved with the ministry, and you can kind of see who's upcoming to be praying for. Then, of course, you can email me at celebrityevangelist@yahoo.com.
Okay. Speaking engagements, is that the best way to get in touch with you, through email and through your Facebook?
Yes. I mean, I've had people contact me every possible way to come speak at their event, but the easiest would be through any of those social medias or the email.
And I'm sure there may be people on here, and hopefully there will be, that feel a burden to help you out financially. What would be the best route of getting in touch with you if they felt led to help you out?
On my website, there's a donate page, but also, well, actually, I just changed the donate page. The donate page is at the bottom of Join the Mission. Okay. And on Join the Mission, what that is, it's a neat thing that we just started this year at these conventions where it costs money to get up to this person. I cannot get up to that person if I don't pay the X amount.
Sure.
So like Mike Nesmith from the Monkees, some are more hardcore than others, but like he has a manager standing at the end. You have to make a purchase, cheapest. Sometimes it's autograph, sometimes it's photo. It's hard to tell. But like Mike Nesmith, it's like, okay, here's $100. And so that's just to get up to him. But on Join the Mission, what we're doing, it's a way for you to partner, and you not only allow me to get to that celebrity, but you get something out of it as well. And I only do this for conventions. I'll never sell an autograph from somebody on the street. But at these conventions where you have to pay, you can click support. Like right now, it's Richard Dreyfuss, Brad Dourif, his daughter. There's several other people on there. Wednesday Addams from the Addams family. And by clicking support that person, everybody has the different price. You will be able to allow me to get to that person, to give them the gospel, and you get an autographed 8x10 of that person from their table. And I'll mail it to you, and you'll also get up-to-date information from the minute I'm witnessing to them. Hey, I'm about to talk to them, be praying, because through the email I'll send back a thing, how we can stay in touch at that convention. And you'll get behind-the-scenes information, how that person responded. And it's just a really neat way for you to get something out of it more than just a Facebook post.
Right.
And then if you feel the need to just donate, there's a donate button at the bottom.
Awesome. Now, in closing also as well, again, if you're in the area, Dylan, obviously you're a youth pastor at Henry's Chapel here in Rogersville, Tennessee. So if you're in the Hawkins County, Tennessee, or the Rogersville, Tennessee area, maybe looking for a church, maybe you've got some teenagers of your own or some young kids, and looking for a good solid Bible church with a good leader here for the youth program, they're located at 145 Henry's Chapel Road in Rogersville, Tennessee. And Dylan, why don't you go ahead and update people on times of service and when you guys meet for youth as well?
So for youth in college, we are, if you want to look on Facebook, it's Upper Room Rogersville. We meet every Wednesday, 6 o'clock. I'm incorporating new special events. If you want to stay up to date with that, it'll be updated on the Facebook page. Our regular service times on Sundays is Sunday school at 10 a.m., worship service at 11. We have discipleship training at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Sundays for discipleship training, and then Sunday evening service at 6 o'clock.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, man. I appreciate you so much being part of what we're doing today. Excellent as always. And folks, there it is, 50th episode in the books. Can't believe it. So we're looking forward to another 50, hopefully down the road, good Lord willing. But just like Dylan was talking about, you can reach us as well if you haven't done so before. Share the word out there for a lot of people and let them know that trying our best here to help people, encourage people, get the gospel out there, and just provide some really good interviews that might encourage you for what you're hearing from some people. So if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as on Apple Podcasts. Try to leave us a review on there. That'll help us out a lot, and that will get the word out even more. If you haven't done so already, make sure you also follow us on our Facebook page for the daily stuff we put up there. And if you want more info about all that kind of stuff, head on over to our website. Again, that's jeremiahreiner.com. And there you'll find all of our archive messages linked to our YouTube channel. You'll find all of our blog posts that we've got on there for everybody to read. And you'll find our upcoming ministry schedule. So tons of content out there. But for now, keep praying for Dylan. Keep praying for their ministry. And until next time, episode 51, we'll see you guys and hope you have a great week in Jesus.
Deeply